Alright, good morning guys. So yesterday I took out the Big Chief Studios Thunderbirds and I spoke a little bit about what's coming out there. One of the other big lines that Big Chief Studios do is the Doctor Who line. It was actually the Doctor Who line that started the company. I do not have their first two figures ever, but I have their third figure ever, and so I'm going to start with that and kind of move along and talk about the changes in quality, etc. Over time. So it's a bit hard to believe that they've been around for this long because, again, they're quite small and a lot of people don't really know about them or you don't really see them around. But the 10th Doctor was the third figure that they decided to release. The first figure they actually did was an earlier version of the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith, and the second figure was Amy Pond. I can't comment on the quality of those two figures. I very briefly saw the Matt Smith figure in hand at Comics Etc. in Brisbane. That was how I stumbled upon the company. And the figure was $400 Australian back in, I'm going to assume 2012, because there was a huge gap between a very long gap between Matt Smith and David Tennant. So I'm going to say 2012. And yeah, they wanted $400 for it, and then Amelia Pond was next to him, and they also wanted $400 for her. I do know that the sculpt for Amy Pond was not well received, but Big Chief actually went back and designed a second sculpt that you could purchase, and that really did add a lot to the figure. However, I don't think the base body at the time was all that great either. Again, I can only make that as a speculation based on what I saw and read around the time. Okay, so David Tennant, the 10th Doctor, was their third figure ever. Now, this guy was done, you can see in all the Big Chief Studios, I should have pointed this out yesterday, all the Big Chief Studios figures have this kind of barcode down the bottom, and they tell you what number edition you got and how many there were. So, again, Big Chief Studios are a little bit pricier than Hot Toys depending on where in the world you're buying them from or where in the world you live. Reason is they have a much, much smaller edition size than Hot Toys would, and of course they are paying the BBC for their licensing, and I imagine that the BBC would probably be quite expensive. And then we have all the credits and whatnot on the bottom. So you can see this figure was released in 2013. It's there in the smaller print. So tailoring. Big Chief Studios with the Doctor Who figures have always been amazing with tailoring. The bodies, like I said, I can't comment on the earlier two, but the David Tennant body is quite sturdy. You can see he can stand up on his own. However, if you're going to do a dynamic pose, and I will show these later, I would suggest using the display stand if you're going to do any type of dynamic pose. Their hands are and I'll get one out of the box actually, so I don't. Their hands are actually this really soft rubber, I would say. I'm pretty sure it's rubber, which makes the fingers and whatnot quite pliable. Of course, the downside to that is that you could get cuts or tears if you move them around too much. But for like the sonic screwdriver holding hand that I've got on him at the moment, having that pliability really does work, and it allows you to not really scratch the paint on the accessories, and you can get them in there quite easily. I know I've had a couple of Hot Toys or Sideshow figures where like getting an accessory into a small hand is or a tight hand is very stressful, and you feel like you're going to break the accessory or the hand or something. So it's just something to be mindful of. So many layers to this costume. You can see there is an undershirt. Then we have this striped suit, and then we have his actual coat. And again, all the tailoring on this is quite good. The inside pockets do not function, but the outside pockets are functioning pockets. You'll see that as I move on, they actually decided to make functioning pockets. And you can see that is definitely a younger David Tennant. Well, younger now because he's obviously aged a fair bit, but you can definitely recognize that straight away. My only real complaint, and I didn't actually notice this, is here a little bit of the paint has rubbed off from being in storage because of the spikes, the way his hair spikes. But you can't notice. I mean, I didn't notice it. It actually, I had them all set up and everything before I even noticed it, so it's not all that noticeable. However, if you do it from a distance with the right angle, you can definitely notice it there. But these parts here, I imagine, are quite fragile. So it's just one of those unfortunate having them in the box things. But that's okay. Like I said, this guy was released in 2013, and for such a long time ago, the quality is good. So we have his shoes. Not real laces like Hot Toys, sculpted laces. And you can kind of see it goes up there to where the laces are painted. And then good texturing on the bottom. And like I said, he does stand on his own. There is the Sonic hand I was talking about. So again, it's nice and pliable, and you can actually just get the Sonic straight in there. Ooh. The camera didn't like that, and I believe... Oh yeah, and so this is the other good thing about having the pliable hands. So this is a gripping hand for one of his accessories, which I will go over shortly. So I'm going to do it differently to the way I normally do the figures. Normally I would look at the figure and then I'd look at the accessories and the figure. I'm going to do all three figures first, and then I'm going to do all the accessories. So you also do get these really nice cards, and I'll explain the difference between them later on, and it just tells you what the figure is, and that you definitely got an official one. And of course, buying directly from Big Chief Studios, you know that you're going to get an official one. Alright, so Matt Smith. As said, this was their second attempt at Matt Smith. The first one had his classic... the first one did have his classic suit that he wore throughout his series. This one was released in 2015, so there's a 2-year gap between this figure and the David Tennant figure. As you can see, the paint app on this guy is a lot more realistic than the David Tennant. I mean, David Tennant is quite good, but there are a few people around that feel that it's just a little bit of that sideshow cartooniness about it. But you can definitely tell that that's Matt Smith. I mean, I didn't know who Matt Smith was until he became Doctor Who. The original reason why we didn't get the original Matt Smith was at the time, because my wife is a big Doctor Who fan, and these are hers, not mine. But I won't be able to go into much detail about the accessories of what they are. But this was made for as a reissue for, I believe, the series 7. Yeah, the Series 7 finale, sorry. This was made for the finale, because this was the outfit that he wore to Trenzalore in that two-part, I believe it was a two-part episode. Now, the base body is also... Not that I don't really have any complaints about the David Tennant base body. It's, like I said, it works. It just doesn't have any flimsy parts or anything. But this body here feels a lot more tighter and a lot more sturdier. So that's a good body. This one is a great body. It's very stiff and moving, and I'm not going to go over the So yeah, it still articulates quite easily. The jackets on these guys do hinder some of their up and down movement, and Capaldi is the one that suffers the most from this. But again, you've got so many different layers, and if you futzed around with it, it'd probably look a lot better than it did. As I said, we've had these guys packed away since we moved the first time, but we've got the shirt, bow tie, this kind of waistcoat, the chain coming down, and then the overcoat. So there are a lot of layers to these guys, so it's expected that the articulation is going to hinder a little bit. Now, he is a little bit harder to stand than David Tennant. You can see that there are very flat shoes. Again, sculpted and painted laces. The material on the pants is fine. The fabric is all high quality, and again, that sculpt is fantastic. One of his accessories is the fact that this back hairpiece actually removes, and if you weren't looking, I think even if you're looking for it, you can kind of just see the line where it separates. So again, the line isn't as visible as it was with the Thunderbird figures. And again, just going over that great paint app on this guy, I think that is probably the reason why people kind of doubt Big Chief, is, like I said, the little bit of a cartoon look for Tennant, but their Sherlock Holmes figures, the Cumberpatch and Martin Freeman, they did not have this type of paint app. They did have a really soft, cartoony look to them. I will probably try and do a Sherlock Holmes showcase, and again, I'll probably use Matt Smith as the standard. I could probably use Capaldi, or maybe even one of the later ones, because going through, I think they kind of swap between this and the soft cartoony look. But Matt Smith is definitely one of their better figures. And then moving on, we have the Series 8 debut Peter Capaldi. Now, I think... Oh yes. So both this Matt Smith and this Peter Capaldi had a run of 1,000. So David Tennant had, and I'll talk about this later, there was two different editions. One of them had 1,000, one of them had a very low number, 300. So, again, the tailoring is excellent. I'll just point out really quickly, Matt Smith does have a functioning pocket there, and I don't know if... Yes, his inside pocket does function. So it took 2 years for them to kind of go, oh, we better make our inside pockets work. Now, Capaldi has one pocket there that functions, and then his inside pocket does function also. I thought he was the first one. Now, Capaldi is a lot harder to stand than the other two figures, and I don't know if it's actually like this in the show, but I will show you his shoes later on. Excellent detailing on the hand. He has a ring now. I don't believe... No, Matt Smith does not have the ring. So that's just a plot line that they followed. So he has a ring. The paint app, again, you can definitely tell it's Capaldi, and that angrier kind of doctor that he was. It's interesting that the neck and head joint, so the difference is a little bit more visible on Capaldi, because his shirt doesn't kind of go up as high as the others. So it's a closer colour on Smith and it's a closer colour on Tennant. Slightly different colour with Capaldi's neck and face paint. So again, he has a shirt, a vest, and then an overcoat. The pants are the same material. Now his shoes have this transparent... They've kind of this transparent effect to them. And there is a pattern on his shoes. Now the pattern is actually sculpted, so it's quite a rough... It's not smooth or not flat like Matt Smith's was and like David Tennant's was. So that there is probably the reason why it's a little bit harder for him to stand up. But again, all the articulation is there, except again, raising his arm up. But I mean, it's not really something that the doctor does a lot. And I imagine you could probably get a timey-wimey pose for Matt Smith with the articulation that's there. And again, did they use? No. Again, sculpted laces, not real laces. But again, the quality of these guys is quite good. Now, I honestly cannot for the life of me remember how much these guys were. I know Matt Smith, we were a little bit hesitant to buy the Doctor Who figures. Not so much because, well, price was part of it. David Tennant was probably 400 Australian, maybe a little bit more, maybe 450-ish, because buying from Big Chief Studios, you pay in pounds, and I will go over the benefits of buying directly from Big Chief Studios in a minute, when I explain all their accessories and things. And again, Matt Smith wasn't my wife's... David Tennant's my wife's favourite Doctor. She wasn't a fan of paying $400 for a Matt Smith figure. We got Matt Smith when he was on special during one of their clearance sales, and Capaldi, I believe it was on special as well, but not as discounted as much as the Matt Smith figure was, and she did like the Capaldi Doctor. So price came down to it a little bit, because these guys, like I said, these guys are a little bit more expensive than Hot Toys, due to the fact that it's a UK company and we're paying in pounds, and we've got to make up for the fact that they're BBC characters and whatnot. Okay, so I'm just going to lay these guys into their boxes so I can go over some of the accessories and why it's good to buy directly from Big Chief. Okay, so first of all, I probably should have left Matt Smith out, but that's okay. Okay, first of all, the box. So the boxes themselves are quite nice. We've got this silver reflective material used. And it says 10th Doctor, and it gives you the year that they were the Doctor for. Limited edition collector series. I already explained the bottom of the box. Side of the box has a portrait of the actual actor, and then a pose of them using the Sonic. I think they're all the same. And then the back, similar to what we got with Thunderbirds, it's a picture of the character and a kind of blurb about the figure and the release. Now, one really cool thing about these boxes is these front of these boxes are all magnetic. Every Doctor Who figure box is like this, and we get a backdrop of the inside of their respective TARDIS. Probably would fit in a top shelf, maybe. I've never used the backdrops just because I don't. It's not that I'm not a fan of the backdrops. I think the backdrops are great. I just never really had the room for them. And then the inside of the box is just white because I've taken out the trays. And then they just magnet back on. So very cool idea. Alright, so accessories. We get, like Hot Toys, and this is what I was saying, the difference with the Thunderbirds. With similar to Hot Toys, we have all these extra hands, and again, they are all that rubber. They're all that pliable rubber. So if you were using, say, again, here's the pistol hand, you can see, that is very pliable, so I can get that accessory in there quite easily. Okay, so he has 2 pairs of glasses. He has a regular pair, and again, probably not Hot Toys level detail, but I mean, they're just basic glasses. So black with the plastic frame in there. A pair of 3D glasses. Again, I can't tell you which episode it's from. We have an open and a closed Sonic. We have, I believe that's a pocket watch, because there is the opened version of the pocket watch. And then we get his magic paper. So his magic paper is a rubbery material, and that's what I said. It's good to have the pliability of the hands, because this can just pop right in there, and it's quite well. And again, it's not super detailed, but it's just a blank piece of paper, so there's not really much detail you can add to it. And then we get, I believe it's a water pistol. Again, I can't, it's definitely a water pistol, but I can't tell you the reference for that. Then underneath, you have a second tray with the display stand, and that's pretty much it. And I will explain this in a second as well. Now, the really cool thing about these display stands is they do not, it's a bit of a trade-off, but it's not like the Hot Toys display stands where we get the front of the or the bottom of the base and it says the character's name. Because, I mean, a lot of people are probably going to just recognize the characters anyway without having that. I meant to mention as well, his coat is wired. I don't think any of the others, no. His coat is wired, the other figures don't have wired coats. So when you're packing him away, you just got to be careful that you don't screw off the wire too much. So you get this display stand. Now, the display stand itself looks quite bland. It's just this reflective surface. It's because the display stand itself takes batteries. You put a battery in there, then you turn it on, and it actually lights up. I've only done this a couple of times. I don't think I've ever recorded it, unfortunately, because it is quite hard to see on camera. But you actually get a light effect which forms a Gallifreyan number on the base, and it's the number that they were. So this one would be the Gallifreyan number for 10. Smith's display stand lights up to the Gallifreyan number of 11, and so forth and so forth. All of the Doctor Who figures have that, I believe. Again, we're missing quite a few. We did really want to get the Tom Baker figure, but at the time, I think he at the time was more expensive than David Tennant, and it was just not viable to. I think it was $500 maybe, and it was just not viable at the time to get one. And of course, his after sale price is now phenomenal. And they also did. I don't know if the 8th Doctor has come out yet. I think he's very close. But they also did the first Doctor, and I'm not sure if he had it, because he had a whole commemorative set. They actually did 2 different versions, a coloured version and a black and white version. He was a very expensive figure because he had a very big set that came with him. But yeah, these are quite cool. You just flick it on and you see a illuminated number in the middle, or a Gallifreyan number in the middle of the display stand, which is quite cool. Alright, last accessory that comes with these guys is as it goes on the ground, Big Chief Studios always gives you one of these cards, and it's a certificate of authenticity. So I'm just going to compare them. So just a standard piece of paper. It would be nice if it had like a cardboard backing, but that's okay. Doctor Who, 11th Doctor, 2011-2013, Series 7 figure. And it tells you the year, it tells you the years that Matt Smith was the Doctor for, and it has a signed version. Now, limited edition, signature edition, and as said, 1,000. Oh, if you're wondering what the smudges are, they use actual pen. So the pen's just smudged over time. This is fine because it repeats the number. It repeats the number on the card anyway. But 1,300. So with a lot of the Big Chief Studios figures that have a very low edition size, you get the actor's signature. They usually put up a video or a picture of the actor signing, so you know that it's actually them. But the 10th Doctor is portrayed by David Tennant in 2013, and then it's got David Tennant's signature, the 50th anniversary logo, because that was what this figure was for, and then you get the standard collector's card on the back. And this peels off. I'm not going to do it because I just don't see the point in doing this. But this peels off and goes on that plastic piece there, and it makes a plastic plaque, if you so choose. Now, the signatures themselves do add to the price of the figure, and that's probably the reason why Tom Baker was so expensive. I can't remember how much he was without the signature. Sometimes they give you the option of opting out of the signature. Other cases, they don't. Again, I cannot remember how much the exact amount I paid for this guy, but I know there was probably about a 40 to 50 pound difference between getting the signature and not getting the signature. I had a quick look. At the Sherlock Holmes set, because they did a set for the Abominable Bride special. Now there was a £100 difference between the signature version and the non-signature version of that piece, because I think at the moment the non-signature version has a discount applied to it, but £100 if you were in the US is $126 difference. So roughly, as I struggle to do math, roughly $63 difference, of course. Should have known that. So $63 per actor, which probably isn't too bad, because I imagine if you met Benedict Cumberbatch at Comic-Con or something, should probably be a lot more than that. For Australia, $182 difference between the normal set and the signed set, which would be about $90 an actor, $91 an actor. So, it is what it is, and it's just their way of kind of adding something special to the set. Alright, so looking at Matt Smith's accessories. So again, I did not get the signed version, so it's just the standard card. All the same hands, slightly different hands. So we kind of get his gesturing, his holding hand. We get the relaxed hands. Is that the Sonic hand? Yeah, so pistol trigger hand. That's the Sonic. Yes. No. I'm not sure what that hand's for. Then we get 2 of them. And then that one there is kind of your Sonic holding hand, I guess. So yeah, they have slightly different hands. Now you'll notice that there is an accessory missing, and this is my one complaint about probably waiting. So every so often, they'll do a special accessory that comes with the figure. To entice you to buy it. Often it's just a signature, but sometimes they add a little bit more. So because this was not so much a reissue, it was a reissue of Matt Smith. But this costume had never been done before, because this costume had never been seen before until the Caesar Trenzalore episode, where, apologies, it's the Regeneration episode. So you actually got Peter Capaldi's head in this set here, if you bought it within a certain amount of time. Unfortunately, when I bought this figure, they said that allocation had exhausted. You won't receive it. There was a nice note there. Whatever. There is Matt Smith's glasses from the Caesar Trenzalore episode. Watch. Magic paper. I can't comment on the... It's got very nice detailing though. Big friendly button. Oh, yep. So, very nice detailing there. Here's Sonic. So you can see, I didn't go over the detailing of Tenet's screwdriver, but you can see that the detailing is there. It's not as well painted as you would expect from a Hot Toy, but they did do a pretty good job. And the 13th Doctor, when she comes out, is going to be actually manufactured by a different factory. I can't remember which factory these ones came out of, but I believe that they had a different factory working on the Doctor Who figures than the Thunderbirds figures. So we get a box. The detailing inside's not that great. The detailing on top's okay though. And then that just closes. Push that back down because it's popped out. And then we get an extra bow tie. So there is a reissue of David, I should say. I don't know the price of it at the moment. I don't know if it's still available. But there is actually a newer David Tennant figure with a slightly more realistic sculpt that you can purchase. So with the Doctors, they made them wear different costumes as to where they were going back or forward in time. So Matt Smith wore a different bow tie when he was going backwards and forwards, and David Tennant had a different coloured striped suit. The alternative suit is the one that you can buy, I believe. So that's everything there. And the bow tie just attaches via elastic. And then I said they had this very nice chain going down there. And that is... Nope, it's actual chain. So that's actual chain, which is quite nice to see. Now, he does have one other accessory besides the display stand. So again, that just lights up the Gallifreyan 11. And he actually comes with a fez. If I could get it out. Okay. So, plastic mold, unfortunately, the tip of it is also sculpted. And it actually just places onto this. trouble with doing things one-handed. So similar to what I was explaining with the Thunderbirds, the inside of this isn't all that well, you mean you're not really looking at it, but you can see that they didn't wipe off their excess paint, and the paint job itself is probably the lowest, was probably the least detailed, or like the cheapest looking piece of the set. But that just, oh, did I put it on backwards? Nope. Sorry, I was just trying to figure out how it sits there. But yeah, the idea is that it goes over that skinned part and it magnets in. But yeah, I've not used it. My wife hasn't used it. She's probably not planning on using it. So yeah, it just kind of clips in like that, and you just push it to where it needs to go. Again, I'm not. You could probably push it up so that part there is not visible, or it should push up so that part there is not visible. But yeah, it's probably the cheapest accessory of the set, unfortunately, because even if they didn't include it, or whether it was just a fabric fez that sat on top, I reckon it would probably have been a better inclusion than. It just seems, this one here just seems, especially the paint, just seems like it was a rush. And again, that is why they've changed up their design, or their manufacturing style so differently, because they want to avoid stuff like this happening. And you'll see, I am going to do two different, it's going to be two different parts. So these figures, as I said, were all from 2013 to 2015. I believe he might be a little bit older. Yeah, 2015. So the Trenzalore Matt Smith was actually done to announce that they had the license to do the Capaldi figure. Now, Capaldi did not actually offer, so there's the Ninth Doctor figure. He'll be in the second part of this video, because we are doing longer videos for this. So again, 12th Doctor, the box does lift up the same, so we get that beautiful backdrop. So he's just smiling in that one. He's not using the Sonic. Is he using... Oh, and he's doing his hand gesture there. Matt Smith's... He's doing a gesture. And just a side portrait view. And of course, he had the very he had the very illuminated TARDIS. So all the Doctor Who figures feature similar backdrops, and I believe when we get to them, the companions will just have the TARDIS that they that matched the Doctor that they were paired with. Okay, so Capaldi. Capaldi's is the most interesting in terms of what they tried to do with the accessories. So he does get this gloved hand, which is a bit of a pain to swap out, like any of these, like any of the, similar to Darth Vader, where the peg is all the way at the bottom there, and it's a long glove. Now, he comes with Matt Smith's Sonic, and the reason for this is, well, it's a bit of a spoiler for the series, but at this point, he had really only just transformed, well, because the idea was that they were, they gave you the Capaldi head to go with that, if you didn't want to buy Capaldi on his own. And this one here, I felt, is a much... Well, this is the costume that he had for the first season. and he didn't really use... He didn't come up with his own Sonic till quite later. You can actually buy accessory packs as well. So you can buy like the Sonic sunglasses and all that type of stuff. So we get his ring on a couple of extra hands. Or just that one. Oh no, his ring's on that one too. And then that's that gesturing hand. He kind of did. He was very gesturing. Is that another palm? Not sure what that is. We get like a cube, which again, you can see that for the most part, they are pretty detailed. So he just came with items from different things. I think they're supposed to replicate the Jelly Babies. There's a spoon from the Gloved episode. He uses the spoon. Then we get the magic paper again. And of course, all the Doctors come with the magic paper. I think it's coming back with Jodie as well. As she uses it. Oh, they've all used it. So that's fine. Then underneath, we get this mini TARDIS. And this was probably the most unique accessory because it was something they hadn't really tried before. We get this mini TARDIS, and you can see that there is a cardboard insert. Now, the really cool thing about this is, and it's quite hard to do, I'm not going to do it. These doors, the doors actually open and close, and there is underneath, there's another... So this is pretty much what it looks like. It pegs in, or doesn't peg, it kind of sits over this little, what it is, and it's a miniature cardboard picture of Capaldi. And it happens in an episode, the TARDIS gets shrunk. And so what you can do is you can actually get one of the spare wrist pegs that they give you, and you can actually peg a hand in front of this to make it look like he's reaching out. It's to mimic what happens in the episode, which is quite a nice idea. It's just very tedious to set up. So it's quite cool. And again, he has the light up display base. So overall, with the quality of these figures, again, I couldn't really comment on the quality of their first two figures, but third figure, I imagine that Tom Baker, I think Tom Baker was their fourth. Was their fourth figure, because there was a gap. So I'm going to say that this one was probably their sixth, then their seventh, provided that I'm not missing any, and then the later ones that we've got down there. And I'm not going to comment on what number they were because I've got no idea. Yeah, so Tenet was the only one of these. Tenet was the only one of these that I got day one. Simply for the fact that looking at like they were quite expensive when they first came out, and then they got cheaper when Brexit hit because the pound kind of crashed a little bit, and that's when they started doing a lot of their sales. But it is better to order sooner rather than later of these. As said, if I had bought this guy sooner, I would have gotten a signature, and I would have gotten Capaldi's head. Capaldi did not offer a signature. They were going to do it, but then he said, no, I'm not going to charge for my signature, or I'm not going to give you the opportunity to charge people for my signature, so it's a no deal, but you can have my likeness and all that. And so he signed that off. Because the reason this figure was in doubt for a little bit, simply because of that whole issue they did have with Capaldi. So they did the head sculpt with this figure in case that one didn't come out, and of course it did, which is fine. And I just remembered as well, with this figure as well, there was actually a Cyberman head that you could have gotten as an early accessory. So a few of them, they did a Builder Dr. David Tennant as a reissue. They gave you different pieces of his pajama set from one of the specials. And then you could buy the head sculpt separately when that came out. And similar to that, different figures came with different items if you ordered them sooner or later. So a day one issue of this guy would have gotten you a signature, a Cyberman head, and a Capaldi head. And then it was just a little bit disappointing that they kept the mold there for it. 3-0 do it a lot as well. It's just something, I understand why they do it. It just saves them money having to have 2 different trays for the same figure, plus or minus an accessory. But it is a little bit disappointing when you get a figure and you go, oh, there's an item missing, and then you look it up and go, oh no, there's not. I didn't order it. I didn't order the correct version of it. Obviously, Sideshow, they use 2 different trays for their exclusives and their normal figures, as do Hot Toys. So you never really notice what that exclusive item is unless you go and look it up. Yes, I cannot remember what the special item that came with Capaldi was. I believe it may have been the River Song pack, which you can order separately. And yeah, different Rose came with a piece of the pajama set. Clara came with a piece of the pajama set, I believe. But yeah, it just depends on when you order. It is better, even though it's a higher price, it is better to order sooner rather than later. Having said that, with the new, I had a look with the Flash Gordon set, and this looks to be the way that they're going with these. The higher price for Jodie Whittaker, the Flash Gordon figures, Parker, they all actually include the signatures. They're only doing the signature version of it, so if you don't order it quick enough, I guess it just sells out. And there's no special items with the exception of Parker. If you pay in full, you get a making of booklet. If you payment plan, then you just don't get it. But again, with these, it's better to order sooner rather than later, so that way you get all the different pieces. And that way you kind of not worried about missing or not having an accessory. Even if it's an accessory like the pajama set that you're not going to use, it's always good to have extra options, just in case. So overall, these are pretty solid figures. The bodies are pretty. The bodies aren't flimsy. They hold a pose. There's no real loose joints. They, for the most part, stand not too bad by themselves, but if you want to get a more dynamic looking pose, definitely use the display stands. And the fact that they light up, I mean, yes, a lot of people don't like it because you've got the battery thing, and a lot of people modify their display stands so that they can have the DC current plugged into the wall and stuff. But Big Chief Studios really shouldn't be overlooked, and that's the point I'm trying to make with these videos. Yes, starting out, and even as we go on, I think the War Doctor is probably one that suffers from this, perhaps, but we'll look at the way that they do their paint applications. A tiny bit cartoony to start off with, but some good likenesses as the years went on. As said, 2-year gap between that, and then he's since gotten reissue, and we'll see the paint applications on the newer figures as well. So when I do the second video, they're going to be from 2016 through to 2017, I think. I do not believe they released anything over 2018. I could be wrong, but I don't think they did, unless it was the War Doctor that was the 2018 one. But either way, there is a considerable gap, 4-year gap between their early stuff and their current stuff. And like I said, the price is mostly because you're paying for BBC, you're paying for signatures, all that type of stuff. And again, like when they gave you the option to opt out of the signature was, you could just do it without the signature if you wanted to go that way. Nowadays, they are including the signatures in the pre-order, and as a result, you get a slightly higher pre-order price. But I'll probably repeat myself a little bit in the next video with that information. Anyway, guys, thanks for checking this out.